Namaskara, Nyahoma. Hello friends. Well, it's been a little while since I was able to get a video out. I've had a very and extremely busy late last fall and early winter 2012 and the very beginning of 2013. So I basically have been enduring a sustained injury, which was not major, but was a little bit testing, and I've been looking after my children until they go back to their daycare facility in about a month's time. So I've had my hands quite full, and that's why I've been a little bit absent. And I say this for those who have been closer to me as friends on YouTube and more or less following a few things I had to say. Nonetheless, here I return with many more videos to come. So, without further ado, today I wanted to talk about, because some people wrote me a few private messages, and speaking of which, I will return and answer private messages that have been written to me most happily. And I did not mean to be tardy or make a prolonged absence of any sort, so please forgive me. So, what I wish to address today was the fact that a few people had asked me, and I had been thinking about it as well, on the nature and the question of heaven and hell. Would we say that they are romantic ideologies or ideas or something deep in the fathomings that human beings have made up, or are they actualities? Well, we are all quite free to define and address that which confronts us at any given moment. And I feel that it should be more and more crystal clear and evident, self-evident, that as we progress further within this awakening that's happening, 2012, December 21st, 22nd, whatever the case, was absolutely nothing at all but a turning of the page. And we are continually going into an eternity. So I hope no one has any hang-ups about that. I just wanted to throw that in there. Now, my point being that what should be crystal clear and self-evident to those who are hungering for truth and for an awakening is that we should have a good sense by this point of what is an actuality, right and wrong. And if we don't, it is based on simply a lack of experience. Because whether or not we want to believe in a God or a devil or this, that, a good and an evil, and this, that, and the other, the fact is there is such a thing as universal law, which is not dependent on our belief, but is an actual fact, and not extinct, but an ever-going eternal essence, simply action, reaction. So anything that we do, we will receive a reaction of some kind, or a consequence of some kind, as is evident to all of you. We are able to understand that a good deed may indeed return good results, and a bad deed may indeed bring us harmful results. This isn't a matter of belief or questioning, or is there a God or not? Do I have the faith for it, etc. It is an isness, a suchness. It is what it is, whether or not we believe in it. It does happen every day. So everybody does understand that, but bringing it into for simple terms, into a focal point, then we can understand. And that is one of my greatest mantras of all, that I hold dearly to myself, is to see it is what it is in and of itself, never minding opinions and belief systems. A thing is what it is. So knowing this, we start to get a grasp of reality being an isness or a suchness, an eternal law of sorts that is surpassing, or is the foundation, the very purpose point, the punctuation of everything. What everything falls back onto is eternal law by default. I was thinking about an old story that I had heard. I was reading a book on, I believe it was Japanese proverbs, just nice quotes and sayings. And whether or not it came from Asia, it doesn't matter. It's a universal truth. And we can find it in all flavors. But this particular passage, I remember this quote was passed down to me from a friend, and I never forgot it. And it was simply this. There was an old sage sitting quietly in his hermitage, in his cabin by the lake, wherever it was. And he was contemplating reality, like many of us do. He was thinking about purposes and meanings and just trying to understand life itself, basically. And there was a samurai warrior who wanted to talk to him, because the samurai warrior was fulfilling his duty as a protector, as a guardsman, as a retainer, whatever the case was. But he was leaving off that warrior self and going into questioning self, the contemplation aspect that is in all of us, no matter where we are on the path. And he wished greatly to ask this man a question, the sage. So he approached the sage and said, "Sir, I have heard that you were a great thinker and you were an enlightened being." And the old sage said, "Who is enlightened?" "Very well, ask your question, my friend." And the samurai warrior said, "I have heard them speak of heaven and hell, and I desire much to know what the two are. Are they real? How would one know?" And the old gentleman said, "What would a violent, crude samurai warrior know of these things? Why would he ponder into this matter?" The samurai felt a little angry. "I thought this person was wizened. He's insulting me." Right? So he said, and I said, "I'll ask you again. I had heard you were a nice gentleman, and I hoped that you would shed some light on this subject. People speak of heaven and hell. I am in a mortal body with this consciousness, with this understanding. I have killed people, I have defended people, I have done many atrocities in the time of warfare. I feel sickened in one way and I feel glorified in another way to have defended something good. But I wish to know heaven and hell." And the old gentleman said, "What would an underling, a small-minded fool like you understand of heaven and hell? Putting on your armor and a steel blade to cut the flesh and destroy men. Maybe you've killed women and children, for all I know. What would you know about this?" And the samurai was starting to get very angry. He said, "You are getting on my nerves now, old man. I ask a generous and sincere question, and you wish to insult me for my genuine search towards you." And the old man said, "You know nothing of reality. Go back to your simple peasant lifestyle, thou fool." And at this point, the samurai, with his honor and his pride, was extremely angry and drew his sword and lifted it above his head. And the old gentleman said, "You see, that is hell." Coming to his senses, the samurai warrior put his sword back in and said, "I am so sorry, I am so sorry." And the old gentleman said, "You see, that is heaven." Now, it's an easy thing to understand, this moral of the story, but we go through this reality and ask ourselves, what is my definition of the world, and what is someone else's definition of the world? And it seems that a lot of the times someone else's definition of the world has a lot of power, more so than I would like. My heart feels broken, my mind feels troubled. It seems that there is a coldness or an ignorance that is in charge of things. And this seems to be owning the planet, it seems to be controlling, it seems to be in charge. Why should that be? That is abhorrent, that is disgusting. Well, through our hopes and desires, the soul is tested and known to itself and in and of itself. And I've come to that conclusion that even though we see a lot of ugly things, the beauty is still out there. And if anyone will I'd like to take a look closely at J.R.R. Tolkien, who was the author of the Silmarillion, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, etc. Yeah, they've made movies and such after that. He called this planet, in his own cryptic, yet out in the public wording, Middle-earth, because here we do get a taste of heaven and hell. So, the soul is known in and of itself and to itself, and thereby do we understand principalities of what is God and what is the devil. Whether or not we wish to call these actual forces, or with sort of an anthropomorphized personality, or whether they are just great influences. Because let's face it, whether or not we like to believe in this, that, or the other, there is a war of wills going on right now. In pop culture, you'll see, more so than ever, a little bit of a lack of innocence, a little more darkness. It seems that the darkness that is present in all of us, which is being accentuated and propagated, promoted, is really going in Hollywood's mind's eye right now, in many cases, not in every case whatsoever, but in many cases. And there is a calling and a stretching that's taking place. It doesn't matter whether you or I want to believe in something or not, but I'm talking about an isness and a suchness. So, the soul gets known to itself. One of the classic and eternal sayings of the Buddha was, "Behold, the whole universe is inside you." And when we can understand this, we can understand the external world is only a result and an extension of what is inside first. So if we're seeing a bit of heaven and a bit of hell, that's because it is inside of us. This earth school was made, this purgatory was made, and now we are seeing enacted all these sorts of things. But those of us who are being called to maturity, to light, to higher understanding, you can call it enlightenment, you can call it whatever you wish to do, but it is what it is, and there is a tug of war. We are finding ourselves, many of us, disgusted and saddened at what is taking place. We are undergoing what seems to us to be a crude exaggeration of the hell that is potentially available within all of us. Not that all of us do it, but it is potentially available within each and every one of us. And the good news is, it is also potentially inside each and every one of us to attain enlightenment, a heavenly wisdom and understanding. It can take us a very long time. Thank goodness for reincarnation, thank goodness for multiple chances. But even in a short time, we may indeed accomplish much. If we agree that heaven and hell are first and foremost states within, then we will understand the states that are manifested without. Everything is internal first, and we know this. But if we're able to channel and harness the maturity, the goodness that is inside of us, without being derogatory, crude, derisive, vicious, malicious, in denial towards the darkness, then we may forgive it, coax it, and teach it. So I think that's what we are doing, those of us who are following and searching for the light. We're seeing a lot of ugly things and horrors in the world. How can there still be war at this point? How can there still be such things as racism at this point, or sexism at this point, etc., on and on? How can they even exist? Some of us can barely tolerate and fathom this childish nonsense, but we still see it. Well, as long as we feel that distaste for it, it means we are meant for the light. And all awareness, all maturation eventually does lead to enlightenment. There's not a single one of us who will not, and I won't say cannot, not a single one of us who will not eventually attain enlightenment, or call it what you will. We are all meant for it. We all have the Buddha nature, we all have the Christ nature in us, no matter who we are. We are meant for it. We are meant to take our time and discover. We are meant for that. It is an inevitable eventuality. Heaven and hell have to do with whether or not your mind, your wisdom, your faculty of thought is correctly having a discourse with your emotional base. People can feel emotionally angered, saddened, happy about something. If the mind isn't fine-tuned to cooperate, collaborate, corroborate, and speak with emotions, voila. This is what we see. So, heaven and hell are within us. Heaven and hell are not necessarily places that just exist because reward or punishment, but you get what you ask for. If you are heaven bent on something, then you will get there. If you are hell bent on something, you may have to see the consequences. It's not about belief or religion or philosophy, it's actuality. We are here, we are mortal, we are learning beings who don't have all the answers. We are desirous, searching beings, looking for answers, looking to justify our emotions, looking to justify our thoughts, answers, purposes. We all do this every day, every single one of us. Old or young, this or that. Wise soul, young soul. There is no real wise soul. If we truly were, maybe we would not have undergone and undertaken this process. Nonetheless, it is what it is, and here we are. Heaven and hell are within. Heaven, if you envision it as some place in the clouds, and I'm not saying there's not such a realm of existence, there very well could be very many of them. Who can deny it? But the point is, if it is such, it is because those who dwell there have that within them. And if there's such thing as a hell, they talk about the 9 levels of hell, the 7 or 10 levels of heaven. Make up whatever numbers you want. It's categorizing, it's compartmentalization, whatever. But the fact is, the level inside creates the dwelling place around us. And I'll have to quote my good man Gandhi, Mohandas Gandhi once again, to say, be the truth that you wish to see in the world, be the light you wish to see in the world. To whatever degrees or whatever extents that is meant to be, we create the reality around us. We are able to, if not warmly embrace each and all every aspect of reality in this human physical world, we realize it is a manifestation of someone's desire, an attitude, and opinion, and we interact or we disassociate as we want to. But we are all, each and every single one of us, you are all divinely endowed, eternal, gorgeous souls. Let not anything dissuade you from that understanding. Distract you from that understanding. Because you and I are eternal, divine, gorgeous beings with a Buddha nature in us that can be attained. Let it come naturally or let it come with the desired focus. Let it be. But the truth of heaven and hell is simply this, as I've said it and as you already know. Hell is a way of being and a way of viewing, a way of feeling that results by your own actions such and such a consequence. And heaven is an attainment, a realization, a thought, an opinion that is a result that comes by desires and actions. Not a single one of us is purely innocent, not a single one of us is purely guilty. There's not a single sinner that can't be saved. There's not a single angel that could not potentially fall if he or she put the focus in the wrong way. We all have that potential, but self-mastery, whatever that means or whatever you'd like to call it, starts with a look inside. And that inner self is not a personalized self. It is an isness that we all share. Our problem is with free will, we want to go out of our way, I truly believe, to prove that we're individual. So much so that we hurt those who are not seemingly so. Myself, my small individual self, me, myself, and I. And when we view other things, other beings as separate from me, myself, and I, and are insulted and angry and taking all these things emotionally personal in a small, mundane way, in a very complicated and misunderstood way, then that's when we do all these hellish actions. But when we see unity in the oneness and an overall design and purpose, feel great unity. So before any one of us wishes to condemn somebody else or praise somebody else, let us realize any potential is an understanding within, whether for good or for bad, an embracing or denial. Whenever we hate somebody, it's just denial of what we ourselves are capable of. Whenever we love and praise someone, it's unity of recognition of what we ourselves are also capable of. And we know this. This is heaven and hell. If there are stages and planets and dimensions and worlds of heaven and hell that exist, I'm sure they do. Well, they will be places because the beings who are there have that within inside. It's inside first, as I just said a few minutes ago. But if people are worried and are doubtful, it's a really weird time. We're about to be birthed into a new understanding. We're about to undergo a great change. People can taste it in the air. They see it on television and computer, YouTube and such, internet. There's something tangible. Like Bob Marley said, there's a natural mystic flowing through the air. It's there, it's palpable. Those who wanted heaven are going to get it. And those who insisted on hell are going to get it because that's what they want. Maybe the extremes are needed to understand the bigger balance. Something like that. Anyway, those are my thoughts for the moment. Early February 2013. And again, I apologize for anyone who was in particular looking at my videos or had been following me at all for the last little while. I've been a very busy young father, and I've been trying to heal my injury. And my kids are great, and I love it. Can't regret being a father at all. And I'm glad to have had some time along with them. It's been glorious. Trying and testing and fatiguing, but glorious. It's fantastic. Anyways, Namaste. And arigato gozaimasu for your time, and more videos to come. Check out my other ones. I wish you the best, no matter who you are. There's no linear time, there's no real place. We're just in an experience that seems to be something. Anyway, I wish you the best, and we'll be talking soon. Cheers.